Hello, everybody. I am Dr. Greer Kirshenbaum.
And I'm Dr. Rocio Sunini. Welcome to Spoil Your Baby.
So excited to do an episode together.
Yes.
We work together nearly every day, helping parents learn to spoil their babies in the best ways to grow their brains to health. Today, we're going to dive into some really big myths about infant care that can actually be really harmful for babies' long-term mental health. And we're so always having our hearts open to the parents that we work with and that we come into contact with, because this world is full of low nurture influence and full of myths that just scare parents so much, right?
Yes, Greer. And these myths are everywhere. They are in parenting books, they are in the advice that well-meaning relatives tell parents. You can see it also in the medical professionals. But we are here to tell you that science tells us a different story.
Absolutely. We've both dedicated our entire lives, both of us neuroscientists, so passionate about this early life experience, because the potential to grow lifelong health, mental health, physical health, happiness, compassion, joy, connection in the world, it all starts in these infant years. And it's so important as a base to dispel these myths for parents so they know the truth. They deserve the truth. So, should we get started?
Yes. So tell us the first myth, Greer, that you want to discuss.
So I think the biggest one is in relation to memory. You always hear, babies don't remember anything. So experience it in infancy, it doesn't really matter. If they cry, it doesn't matter. If, things aren't great, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about it, right? Don't worry about all the things in infancy, because babies don't remember. Like, you don't remember your first step. You don't remember trying your first bite of food. It's okay. They're resilient and they don't have memory. So no big deal.
Yeah, but actually what neuroscience shows us is that this could not be further from the truth. It's true that, yes, baby cannot remember like that if we're talking about explicit memory, but there is something called implicit memory. Okay, so these are experiences that are recorded very deep in the brain, they're unconscious, and this type of memory is there from birth. So you want to tell us more about it, Greer?
Yeah, even in, preconception, right? Some people have memories. We have implicit memories in the womb, from birth, and all through these first 3 years of life, right? Implicit memory forms our emotional brain, our unconscious mind, and the foundation for lifelong mental and physical health, right? We have so many different types of memory, and that autobiographical memory that we refer to is really the one that most people know, right? Those are the who, what, when, where, why memories, right? The ones that you can recall with words, with images, and with, a mark there, right? But the truth is that memory in the brain, when we get down to the neuroscience of it, memory means that an event or an experience happened and it leaves a lasting change in the circuitry of the brain. And so we have, I don't know how many, 30 years of research, thousands and thousands of papers in neuroscience, genetics, and so on, so many other fields, epidemiology, that show us that the early life experiences we have critically change the brain circuitry we have in our brains for life, critically form this unconscious mind and our emotional brains.
Absolutely.
Right? Oh, another example is like motor memory.
Yes.
So this was like a really cool way this was shown in the patient HM.
Oh, HM.
Milner's work.
I was going to bring him up, so I'm glad you're bringing him up.
Yeah. Do you want to tell us about it?
Well, I don't know which one you're gonna talk about. His motor memory. I have one about emotional memory. So you go ahead with that. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. You tell us first.
Well, there is one, you know how there is a lot of, HM went through a lot of interactions with the doctors, and this was recorded. But we should inform the audience, right, who HM was.
Yes, yes.
So it's a famous neuroscientist case that all neuroscientists learn in school, right, Greer?
Yeah.
So HM, and please correct me if my memory fails me, but HM had a very debilitating epilepsy. And so they decided to take some parts of his brain. And at the time, we didn't know very well all of the role of the hippocampus and of certain memory parts in the limbic system. And so they took these parts, and then what happens is he could not form new memories. Is that how you say, Greer?
Yeah. He couldn't form new autobiographical memories, right?
New explicit
where memories.
Yeah, like the memories we talk about always, like the explicit memory. He could not form them. He was eternally living in the present. He could remember all his past, but anything that happened in the future, he'll just forget, and he eternally living in the present. But so the doctors and scientists that were studying him, they wanted to know what were the things he could remember. And one day, one of the doctors came, and every day he'll say, hi, HM, and we'll give him a handshake. And they would just introduce each other like if they never seen each other. Every day was the same, right? Hello, I'm Dr. So-and-so. Hi, I'm HM. Like he'll just, HM would not remember. One day, the doctor had a pin in his hand and pinched HM's hand, like it caused him pain. They were doing a test. They wanted to see if he could remember that. And so then he pinched, and he was like, ouch, you pinched. Like he had a pin in his hand and pinched him when they handshake. And that was it. Then the next day, the doctor came in and he's like, hi, HM, and gave his hand to shake. HM didn't want to handshake him. And he didn't know why. Mm-hmm. That's implicit memory in action, emotional implicit memory.
Yes. Beautiful example. I'm so happy you remembered.
I remember this one. Yes, it really impacted me when I learned this.
Yes. It's such a beautiful example, right? Of babies can also experience emotional pain, physical pain in these early years that they might not be able to tell you about after infancy because that part's not remembered. But the avoidance of certain emotional interactions, of relationships and stress responses, those memories will stay, right? So that's a beautiful example. HM was also able to build his motor memory. So there's a very difficult task you can do where you trace something in a mirror. And so I believe it was a star. They had a star on a page, and then they held up a mirror. And then HM had a pencil that he had to trace over the star, but only looking in the mirror. And on the first day, it was, really messy, really hard, looked terrible. But over repeated experiences, same thing. Every day they'd say, here's a new task. This is how you do it. Because he couldn't remember what happened the day before or even 20 seconds before. But his motor memory significantly improved. So by day 10, 20, whatever it was, he could draw that star in the mirror, no problem, right? Because his neurons in his motor circuits were adjusted, right? So this is just a beautiful example of how we have multiple memory systems in our brain. Sensory memory is another one. There's many. But so, really to dispel this myth about babies is that, that's the truth. They don't have this autobiographical memory after they leave infancy. But they do have the implicit memory. They remember their relation, how they were related to. They remember how sensitive their care was. They remember how we responded to their stress, to their big emotions, to how much they were held and touched and loved and cared for. And, that's our message. When we can provide the infant brain with this incredibly sensitive, loving care, attuned care, we grow their brains to health, right? And we're going to go deep into that in this podcast, but important for parents to understand this.
Yeah. The take home message here is your baby does remember.
Yes. And that myth is used by, all these sort of well-meaning parenting experts, doctors, your best friend, your mother-in-law, maybe your own mother, to justify this next huge myth, which is responding to a baby, responding to their cries or all their cries is spoiling your baby or is teaching your baby to be dependent, right? Yeah. And so that voice of don't spoil your baby, don't pick them up to all their cries, and don't worry because they're not going to remember. Really harmful myth. And parents know it feels wrong, right? So you kind of need these two myths together. So it's don't pick them up all the time. It's okay if they cry. And if it feels bad to you, they don't remember. So don't worry, right? But the truth is, babies do need us to respond to all their cries to grow their brains to health. And they also remember. So we're the voice saying, spoil that baby, pick them up every time they cry and do it as fast as you can and do it with sensitivity and love and care.
Absolutely. And don't you ever feel bad about it, because you are building emotional brain circuitries for life.
It's really miraculous what happens there, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to intro our next big one?
Yeah. And so, all of these myths, like you say, Greer, they're all tied together because, when you start with one myth and then something has to justify that myth, and then it just builds on, right?
That's right. It's a house of cards, right?
It's a house of cards, yeah. Very shaky if you go into neuroscience. And the next one is that babies are resilient. So experience in infancy doesn't matter. They're resilient. You can do this because they're resilient.
Absolutely. This one really, really shakes us, right? It's, babies, all of us, of course, have some capacity for resilience. Like we're not going to, do major damage if it takes us a little bit longer to respond one time, or if our baby cries in the car here and there, or, these minor brief stressors happen. But to use this myth, babies are resilient, don't worry about it, don't worry about your gut feelings, is incredibly harmful, because what it's supporting is let your baby cry a lot. Let them cry to sleep, let them cry during the day, ignore them, punish them, all of these harsh behaviors that are really a huge part of my mainstream parenting. And under that guise of, if you respond, you're spoiling your baby. And we really just want to flip that around again and say, use your gut, use your intuition. Your baby needs you. They're communicating and they need you. And so, yes, while there's some resiliency, babies are not bulletproof. They can't cry for hours a day. They can't cry themselves to sleep for every nap and every night without a consequence. Those memories remain. The brain circuitry is at risk of changing in a way that is not going to support health. And it's super, super important for parents to know the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, the infant brain is very, very powerful, right? Because it's learning a million things in the beginning of their first 3 years, and is super, super plastic. And so if you know this, that is super plastic, then it will follow that is also very vulnerable, which is the opposite of resilient. because with more neuroplasticity, the more vulnerability there is to the experiences in the environment. So this is why this is an absolute myth.
Completely. I mean, it's amazing that, like you said, the neuroscience just is the complete opposite of all of these sort of mainstream beliefs about babies. And it's just it's exciting that we are in a place where we can bring this out into the world and really come at it. You know, it's taken a while to get this message out there, and it's growing, and it's so important. I think young parents now are starting to get much better informed about this stuff. There's at least a lot more available, which is really, really important.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's continue with another myth that kind of touches on the parent experience, which is important because in all of our work, we are always considering everybody involved, right? You know, we want babies to thrive. We want mothers and fathers to thrive. We want the family to do as well as they can in these years, because with the right knowledge, with the right myth busting, babies can leave infancy with the best chance of health that they could possibly have, the most boosted potential for lifelong health. And parents can also transform their brains in a really beautiful way that can remodel their mental health in a positive way, right? So just great opportunity for everybody involved. So from the parents' point of view, I hear this a lot from parents. A big myth, you know, usually a mom's home with the baby. Sometimes it's dad. They spend the whole day taking care of a baby. They're doing all the physical care, changing diapers, changing clothes. They're doing the emotional care, responding to cries, engaging in play and laughter, feeding baby, feeding themselves, tons of activities. But by the standards of the world, you know, their husband or wife or partner comes home at the end of the day and says, "Hey, what did you do all day?" And the default answer is, "We did nothing." Even though all of this tremendous work has been done, a parent might feel, "Oh, well, we went to the backyard, we took a walk around the block, but that's it. We did nothing." So what do we say to that?
Yeah, I hear so much. Another version of it is, "Oh, I was so unproductive. I was not productive at all today." That's what you hear, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, no way. Like there's no, like you mentioned, Greer, all of the activities there that like all of those examples are actually brain building, right? Circuit sculpting, and in both brains. And I always say, wow, I wish, even today I was thinking, because I knew we were going to talk about this, and I wish we had like a measuring machine where we could see the neurons being connected. Okay, this many neurons connected after after doing this with my baby. This many neurons connected in the emotional brain when you did this. Imagine like that phrase, I was unproductive, will not exist.
No.
Yeah.
I know. I've heard parents say this. Like, I wish that there was like you could see inside, you know, because it's invisible. All of that work is invisible. And that's sort of how I support it for people too, right? Like, let's unpack it. You were you were interconnected in your being, in your brain synchrony, in your responsiveness with another being for 12 or 14 hours of your day. And then there's night, which is a whole other story. That is intense, draining, difficult work. That's both so rewarding, but also so hard. What people don't know, like what you kind of mentioned, is there's 1 million connections per second growing in that baby's brain. And so doing a little back and forth conversation, talking to them gently while you change their diaper, helping them when they cry, soothing them when they cry, you're building, I don't even know, like how many connections a day, like millions of millions.
Yeah.
You know, the number's too big to even imagine. So I think that was cool. When you were saying that, I was like, could we have like a little counter on the wall that's going up by a million connections per second to just say, oh, wow, in this day, there's like billions of connections forming that I'm having an active part in. I love it when we can shift that for parents and they can start to speak that way. We're really, really not doing nothing. We're really actively building a child's brain. And that process is the most complex, mysterious, awe-inspiring process in the entire known universe. We're just doing something so incredible.
Absolutely.
What's next? What do you got for us?
What's next? This one, I guess, is like, it comes too from like, I'm not being productive, so maybe you need to buy things for your baby's brain development, and perhaps so you can do things, right? While your baby have these things. So is this truth, Greer? Is this true?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's all over the place. I had stuff in my home with my son that I didn't even want. Like mothers I knew, it was so lovely. They were like, here's a chair that's going to go up and down and bounce your baby. And here's a rocker. And I was like, get this out of my house. First of all, I was in the tiniest apartment possible. I couldn't even handle it. But also, it's just shows you the amount of stuff that comes through, right? And that is a waste of money, a waste of space, and really is not helping our baby's brain development. The opposite, actually, I would say. If babies are spending too much time in these devices and when without us and without our presence, it could be an issue.
Yeah, it's a barrier. Right? There are barriers.
Completely. And they're made to model us.
Yeah, just think about it. It really is to replace us. All of the things embedded. We know, the companies that are doing it know what babies need. So how can we replace this is the goal, right?
Completely. And I think that the other thing I hear around this myth too is my baby's so bored of me. I'm so boring. Whenever I hear that, it's such a trigger for me. I'm just like, no, it's so untrue. Your baby is so in love with you and so interested in you. And well, it's lovely to have toys to interact with, to go out into the world, to be around other people. The truth about this is the key to your baby's brain development is you. It's your presence. It's your sensitivity to your baby's communication, cues, needs, and emotions. That is the only thing that babies need. That's it.
Yeah. Your body and yourself, your face, your presence.
I write that in every baby card. I'm like, your face is the only toy your baby needs. It's the only thing your baby needs to be happy. You don't need anything else at all, right? I'll also say, I've talked about my story. I was a really, really high needs baby. Mm-hmm. And so when the SNOO came out, I talked about it with my mom and I was like, can you believe this? It's replacing a parent. It's, keeping babies isolated and bundled up, right? The SNOO could be its own whole episode.
Yes.
And we should probably do that. But when I talked to her about it, she said, I used a baby swing for you and your brother because we were both, constantly crying, constantly needing contact. And she's like, that I needed that a little bit. I did need that from time to time. And so that did shift my thinking about some of these products as well, right? So they're not for everybody. They're not for every single baby. Not every baby, was quite as high needs as me. So, using these things as tools,
exactly,
of course,
as
we
help,
understand,
not to
right?
replace
As a
us.
help.
Yeah, as long as we know that is there to help us, but not to replace us, then there's not like all or none situation. You know what I mean?
Exactly. There's always that middle ground. There's always like, use it as a tool, use it momentarily as you need. But otherwise, we want to use us as the default, right? We always say that. The default place, we want babies in carriers, we want them held and played with. But if we need to set them down, you can have things around to help, right?
Really absolutely. Important.
Should we end with one more? What do you think?
Sure. I mean, we
one
have
more good one.
Let's do one more because we can have a whole year of episodes on myths. But
seriously,
yeah. How about we talk about breastfeeding? You always hear, breastfeeding past 6, 12, 24 months, like very arbitrary, right? It's extra, it's unnecessary. But what does the science shows us actually?
So important for this. Yeah, we really see this all over the place. We call it full term breastfeeding is about 2 years, at least 2 years, right? Breastfeeding at these, full term ages, it builds the brain in incredible ways. You have the nutrients building the brain, the perfectly customized nutrients, hormones, proteins that are an immune system building that's perfectly customized to our baby's needs. So important. We have the actual physical act of breastfeeding that's shaping a baby's oral palate, their airway, these really critical structures that will support their normal breathing, a normal amount of oxygen getting into their brains as they grow up, which is necessary for cognition and can cause a lot of other issues as well, right? So it's so important. If you are able to breastfeed, we know that not everyone is. If you are able to, look at full-term breastfeeding, which is 2 or 3 years. Every health organization that you can find will recommend at least 2 years of breastfeeding. And we see it's helpful up to 3 years and beyond as well, right? And people will say, hey, you're spoiling your baby. You're doing that for you. It's selfish. When was she going to stop? We'll go into that in other episodes as well. But knowing how important it is for our baby's brain development, body development, immune system development, and oral and airway development is a really good start for us to have confidence to breastfeed as long, as we want to, right? I mean, the other huge one, and I know you'll agree with this too, and I want you to weigh in, is the emotional responsiveness of breastfeeding, how it's the perfect way to regulate a baby.
Absolutely. That's like, it's not talked about enough, but we actually, again, have an invention for it, the pacifiers, right? Look at the word pacifier. And what is that doing? It's giving the baby the opportunity to suck. And what were they supposed to suck? By the way, I'm not against pacifiers, but I'm just trying to make the audience, so the listeners see where it's coming from, right? And the origin of it is the breast. So there's a major component there that is nervous system regulation. It puts babies instantly in parasympathetic state. It tones the vagus nerve, which is immature in them. And that's such a big component. And that's why breastfeeding goes a long way. Like if you look at anthropological studies, there is a huge range that goes from like 2.5 to 7 years old. And a big component of this very extended or term breastfeeding is that it regulates the nervous system.
Absolutely. I would not have survived without it. It was my lifeline. It was my lifeline.
Absolutely.
It's like, those memes that are like, crying, boob.
Yes.
Tired, boob.
That's me.
Hurt, boob. Right? It makes everything smooth and easy, and it's beneficial. It is, we're here to say, go for it, right? If that feels right to you. So for all the parents out there, we'll sign off today saying, spoil your baby with your presence, your touch, your responsive love. You're absolutely not creating any kind of dependency or issue. That is complete myth-based stuff. You're really creating a strong, resilient human. And I bet you when you check your gut, when you check your intuition, when you're loving and responsive and you lead with your heart as well, you know this. You know how good it feels to be there and to be loving and nurturing to your baby. And then there's absolutely no downside. And on the flip side, when you withhold these things, I bet you your heart breaks. I bet you it feels bad. I bet you you're not following your intuition. And that is good information too.
Absolutely. So we can't wait to dive deeper into our next episode. And until then, keep spoiling your baby.